Hello, Jess Too Good here, and I'm going to finish what I started and count down my top 10 favorite LEGO minifigure series. More than 2 years ago, I counted down the top 10 worst LEGO minifigure series. I made a system that applied to all of the series where I broke each specific series down by separating the minifigures with 4 ratings: B for bad, M for mediocre, O for okay and good, and G for great. Using points assigned to each respective rating, I ranked each series based on how good they were at the time of release to determine the list. Now it's all my personal opinions. I tend to like civilian minifigures, and of course I'll appreciate characters from licenses I'm more attached to. I may even rate certain licensed characters on how much they warranted a spot in each series. Finally, the last list only went up to LEGO Minifigure Series 17, but this will go up to LEGO Minifigure Series 19, which just released. Alright, enough of the rules, let's get right into this list. Starting off the list is the second series of LEGO Simpsons minifigures, which, yeah, will be one of my more unpopular opinions on the list, but wait till you see what the top choices are. I was totally shocked when I heard early rumors of a follow-up Simpsons series in late 2014. I don't think this one disappointed Simpsons fans like myself, bringing key characters missing in the world of LEGO, like Santa's Little Helper, Smithers, and Comic Book Guy. Additionally, there were some solid choices for fan favorites, like Groundskeeper Willie, Mole Man, and Frink. I also think this compared to the first series, in which it had more pieces that could be used outside the Simpsons setting, not only with the minifigures themselves, but their accessories. LEGO made an effort to include generic everyday things, my favorite of which is the squishy piece, a very nice dual molded design for a slushy cup. Though there were some odd choices here. We still never got Moe, a character who they could have done outside of his bar tending attire. Sideshow Bob, which, I don't think he's really that inappropriate compared to other characters they did in LEGO. Principal Skinner was missing, no excuses there. And they chose characters like Patty, Selma, and Martin over those that were missing, with Patty and Martin having weak accessories. And while they did have some phenomenal variants avoiding new pieces like Bartman and Fallout Boy, Maggie's variant was literally the same as the one in the Simpsons house, and Homer's Sunday Best was a very uninteresting variant choice for a character with thousands of costumes. Still, all of that considered, I think the Simpsons Series 2 is a good addition to LEGO Minifigures' legacy, no matter what anyone says. Speaking of second licensed series, the second series of Disney minifigures is the most recent entry on this list. When it comes to the Disney series, how iconic the character is and its place in the world of LEGO is how I rank them. And Disney's 2 has some very solid entries of important Disney characters missing from any LEGO minifigure database. My favorites being Scrooge McDuck, who not only is a character missing previously, but the figure also contains some very useful pieces. A printed 1x1 of the Lucky Dime, some super detailed shorts, a tailpiece that actually has the right color at the front, which was a first, a great torso, and a new hair accessory top hat. Elsa and Anna nail the same criteria. Great new hair pieces, characters who shockingly weren't minifigures before, and the same could be said with the series Hercules, Aladdin characters, and Frozone at last. The only thing that weighs the series down are some odd figure spots. Like, I don't think Chip and Dale are currently relevant to the Disney zeitgeist who warrant their own spots over Goofy, Cinderella, and other classic and modern characters. And speaking of Goofy, it sucks he's in an over $300 set and not in this second series specifically. And then there's other odd choices like Steamboat Willie, Mickey, and Minnie, though this series was probably made before the Steamboat set was finished. Sally, who, don't get me wrong, is one of the best figures in this series looks-wise, but a pretty obscure Disney character compared to who's still missing, and Edna Mode. I don't know if it's the Polybags' fault that released a year before, or this version, both have something off about them. I'm not sure Edna Mode is a character that you can really translate into minifigure form. Oh, and the inclusion of the triplets is a weird space filler. I mean, since Scrooge is here, yeah, they're kind of needed, but that's 4 spots for the whole crew, and they don't bother to give half of them interesting accessories. Still, since both of the Disney series rock, I hope it's not another 3 years until we get a third series. While it may not look so special now, LEGO Minifigure Series 1 was revolutionary. Back then, each pack only cost $2, so it was $2 for minifigures with unique designs that wouldn't be included in regular sets. As I said in the intro, we're judging each series at the time of release. Figures like the Skater introduced a very useful hairpiece to the world of LEGO and felt like one of the more modern minifigures. Of course, now the Skater trope has been done to death in CMFs. Same could be said with the Clown. Super interesting and unique figure at release. It was one of our first LEGO Clown minifigures ever, though now the trope is done to death. And I could go on about how a lot of Series 1's minifigures were mind-blowing at the time. The one that stood out the most would be the Zombie. This series was released during the time it seemed like zombies were the coolest thing and they were everywhere, and it was our first LEGO Zombie ever. But it wasn't a perfect series. Admittedly, some minifigures were way too niche, others were common tropes already present in LEGO at the time, but Series 1 really set up a foundation for what became my favorite LEGO theme. When crunching the numbers on each series ranking, I was surprised to see LEGO Minifigures Series 7 made it this high on the list. But this, along with Series 6 that just barely missed the list, it would have been number 11, are two very underrated series that came back to back. I remember when this released around Easter 2012, a great season for LEGO in general. My eyes were set up on the Galaxy Patrol, the Bride, Computer Technician, and Rocker Girl. Galaxy Patrol was revolutionary. Like, getting such a mature looking space minifigure blew my mind since Halo was at Mega Bloks. And while they ran that trope into the ground with later CMFs, this was a great first. The Bride was just really neat concept, introduced a very useful hairpiece and flower piece. The Computer Tech was the first nerdy minifigure in my eyes, and Rocker Girl was so different from the Rocker in Series 4, I love the color on her and that unique hairpiece. This series was very creative with other minifigures like the Bagpiper, Tennis Player, Swimmer, Ocean King, Hippie, Little Red Riding Hood, and Daredevil, all tropes we didn't get in LEGO form before. Sure, there were some stinkers like Jungle Boy, an original idea that had the most boring execution, and the Black Knight, an unoriginal idea that had the most boring execution, especially since LEGO Castle themes weren't dead at the time. Still, I miss when LEGO minifigure series had this more originality to them. Heck, it's the only Red series we ever got, and definitely a hidden gem looking back. Alright, y'all know I love fun spooky stuff. Heck, Halloween, October, and fall are my favorite times of the year for atmosphere alone. Series 14 is right up my alley. It's the only themed original LEGO minifigure series, well, theme done right, with the theme being monsters. Even with that consistent theming, it doesn't come off as redundant. And this was the first series to have adult minifigure legs with dual molding, bringing another level of detail. My favorites include the skeleton costume guy, who on the surface seems a bit simple, but he's one of the few minifigures with printing all around the head to illustrate the mask string, and I love how LEGO translated the classic skeleton minifigure into a costume design. Also, that Trick or Treat jack-o'-lantern bucket is so useful. From bug to bug, Fly Guy is a nice tribute to the Fly movie, with a pretty complex dual molded headpiece and an actual cheap way to get the claw piece. The Wacky Witch is a figure that could have been so bland. I mean, it's not really an original archetype, Series 2 had a witch, but the one in this series just goes above and beyond with a new hair-hat combo, translating the classic Halloween witch image into minifigure form. Speaking of common CMF tropes with exciting twists, the Mad Scientist is hilarious. Now, it's rare that LEGO releases pieces that go on top of minifigure heads that also have a set at the top, but they did it here to make it look like a scientist with a maxed out cranium. Surprise, surprise, I also love the zombie cheerleader. We had two in other LEGO minifigure series, and this is a total parody of them. The dark green goes great with the white and gray, and this was the first figure to have the incredibly useful pigtails hairpiece. To be honest, just about all of the other minifigures in this series are good. From the hilarious guy stuck in a plant, to the zombie businessman and Banshee, who both introduced new hair pieces, with the Banshee and Ghoul also bringing that fantastic ghost-like piece from the summer into the cheap sets, and the Gargoyle, an original figure idea with two new pieces, the strangely adult cat lady, werewolf lumberjack, you get the point, there's so many great ones. Really, the only lame zombie of the series was the pirate, but even that has some appeal for the pirate fan within me. Spider Lady, despite being an original idea, never really stood out to me, and it angered me that her useful hairpiece has that cobweb smacked on. And yeah, look, Brickfoot and Frankenrock are just bad minifigures in general, but still, my bias for fun spooky things makes this series one of my favorites, and I appreciate its appeal for those who don't want to be spooked with all the useful pieces. When I think of my favorite holiday, opening a few packs of Series 14 is one of the first things that comes to mind. When rumors first trickled in of a LEGO Batman movie based minifigure series, what stood out to me the most was the tidbit that this would be the first series to feature 20 minifigures. That's a lot. I mean, the more the merrier, if it means we could get some really interesting variants or new characters in a cheap $4 blind bag, especially from a license that usually has more pricey sets. And while a series like The Simpsons or Disney is great for which iconic characters it could bring us, this series' strength is at the obscure, strange characters it brought us. I don't think a kid could name half of the villains or Bat variants in the series, so I really appreciate LEGO going forward with these choices. Characters like the Calculator and Eraser are so strange and unheard of in Batman lore, but are smart choices by LEGO with an overall appearance close to their Office counterparts, meaning they're hilarious minifigures with useful pieces transcending the Batman license. That's not to say those tied to the Batman license aren't great. Two of my favorites of this series include Fairy Batman and Pink Power Batgirl, which managed to bring useful pink recolors to the LEGO minifigure world, which lacks the pink power the mini dolls usually have. Actually, speaking of fresh twists on classic characters, I love lobster-loving Batman and Beach Batman. The bathrobe is a quintessential clothing missing until this minifigure, same with the lobster piece, the float, and the more casual beach clothes for adults. That's not to say it was all perfect. On the flip side of great Batman variants that feel fresh are the bad ones of tired CMF tropes. Yay, another cave person, and another rocker. But still, the number of good minifigures outweigh the negatives, with other standouts being the provocative March Harriet, the brooding, intricately detailed Commissioner Gordon, and the casually cool Dick Grayson. The LEGO Harry Potter minifigure series, which was released in fall 2018, is the series with the most minifigures ever, a total of 22, with 16 characters based on the original Harry Potter movies and 6 from Fantastic Beasts. And I say, the more the merrier. This series not only had a fair batch of recognizable characters from movies with interesting outfits and twists, but I think better than many LEGO licensed minifigure series, there's a lot of useful pieces outside of the Wizarding world. Most importantly, this series introduced mid-legs to the world, with the only leg options for everyday minifigures being adult size or child size for most of my LEGO loving life, for the most part. This was something that was long overdue. But beyond the mid-leg game changer, there's fantastic new hair pieces, remakes of existing pieces that work a lot better, and just overall creative molds that were missing in the world of LEGO. If we had to talk about favorite minifigures in the series though, mine are probably Luna Lovegood, a character who was way too hard to get back in the original LEGO Harry Potter sets, which is basically the same reason why I love the Mad Eye figure here. Heck, both even have fantastic new hair pieces. But there's a plethora of other minifigures LEGO did an excellent job remaking in minifigure form. Sure, there's about 4 bad minifigures, like a really inaccurate looking Cho, a boring Malfoy, and some very bad Fantastic Beasts choices, but again, this series has 22 figures. Those don't dent its glory whatsoever. Alright, this next one is going to be a very unpopular pick, but the first LEGO Simpsons minifigure series takes the 3rd spot. This is a list of my favorite CMF series, and The Simpsons is a TV show that means a lot to me. The Simpsons was a show growing up which introduced me to what it means to have great characters, world building, animation, and writing. Even with it being a TV show, it blossomed my love for cinema in a way. But sentimentalities aside, with this being the first series based on The Simpsons, it has that extra ounce of iconicity with a very strong character selection and some revolutionary things in the world of LEGO. While something like the Harry Potter series introduced mid-legs, these were the first minifigures to have dual molded sleeves and legs, but only short legs. I remember a lot of people were saying that's the reason this was the first series to be $4 a pack, the normal price for every CMF series since. Again, with this series it was only short legs, but this technique was revolutionary, providing a full 360-degree experience with each dual molded piece, unlimited to just some front sleeve or leg printing. Many people weren't a fan of the molded heads, but I really think it's the only way to bring Simpsons into LEGO form. Sorry, these look hideous. But what about those specific choices? As I said earlier, most if not all are iconic characters in even today's pop culture. The Homer Simpson figure is still one of my favorite LEGO minifigures of all time. I think he's a near perfect interpretation from an animated character with such peculiar shaping. And his accessories are fantastic. The TV remote is a great printed 1x2, the donut was such a useful design, LEGO brought it over into regular LEGO sets, still using it to this day. How many other CMF pieces has that happened with? As for other characters, I mean all of them are good CMFs beyond my love for The Simpsons, as casual civilian minifigures are my favorite types. There's tons of useful casual torsos, those useful dual molded legs, and colorful civilian accessories. Though if I had to be honest, not all the minifigures were perfect. I think Nelson really didn't translate well into LEGO minifigure form. He looks way too puny. I think the same could be said with Chief Wiggum to a lesser extent. But still, seeing these iconic Simpsons characters in minifigure form really was a dream come true. I always knew LEGO Minifigures Series 4 was one of my favorite series, but I didn't expect it to be this high. It deserves a spot though. Only 4 series in, this is still one of the fresher series to this day. I don't think this series had any bad figures. For some of the greats, I really adore the hazmat suit guy, which had 2 new pieces, and is a more adult topic I never expected to get as a minifigure, somebody who disposes of toxic waste. Funny enough, they eventually did have the archetype in a couple of sets. The punk rocker was a long-awaited figure. Up until that point, I don't think there were many musician figures. Heck, I believe this was our first LEGO minifigure based guitar piece, our first Mohawk, and the figure in general looks like it's something from LEGO Rock Band. Yet, this was released 2 years after that game. Other great minifigures in this series include a much easier to get and much improved Frankenstein's monster, a really unique artist figure which introduced us to the very useful palette and beret piece, and a gnome. Love this little dude. For some more extremely unique figures of the series, there's the Ice Skater and Sailor, to name a few that you can't really find in other LEGO sets. This series also had a knack for bringing over some rarer archetypes that appeared in older LEGO sets, though I think these were some of the weaker of the bunch. Like, really, you couldn't give us a ball for the football/soccer player. Still, Series 4 is one of the most well-rounded LEGO minifigure collections, and it's my favorite unlicensed LEGO minifigure series, but there's still one spot left on the list. Alright, so my favorite LEGO minifigure series is going to tick a lot of people off. It's the first Disney minifigure series. Yeah, it's cool to hate Disney, big evil corporation, blah 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 blah. But look, this series not only has the best selection of iconic characters, but it also has some of the most detailed new pieces to capture these iconic characters. Pieces that can easily be used beyond the licenses to make creative minifigures in any theme. Like, each character has a unique piece to them in the series, thanks to Disney's tight rules to make sure LEGO represents their characters correctly. Some highlights include the skirt piece, which was first introduced here, Alice's hair, Mr. Incredible's hair, Aladdin's hair hat combo, Peter Pan's hair hat combo, Captain Hook's hair hat combo. Can you tell I love LEGO hair pieces? But I can focus on those pieces and ignore the obvious draw. These are characters I grew up with, ingrained in pop culture, that haven't ever been in LEGO minifigure form before. So many extremely recognizable classic characters from animated films brought to LEGO minifigure form perfectly. Like, the only mediocre figures here are Syndrome, who doesn't translate well into minifigure form, the Cheshire Cat, who's a fantastic figure but a character I think really didn't deserve a spot over many more iconic Disney characters, and Little Green Alien, which, yeah, it's the best version they ever did for the character, but it's odd as one of the only 4 Pixar characters in the series, especially considering we got a bunch before. I do really appreciate the Buzz Lightyear figure in hindsight. I really didn't like it when it first was revealed, but I grew to love it. It works very, very well. My favorite figures, though, are the classic core Disney characters. Mickey Mouse is one of my favorite LEGO minifigures ever. Again, it's a character who shouldn't work as a LEGO minifigure, but works so well here, with an overall simplistic design and specialized head. The same could be said with Donald Duck, Minnie, and Daisy. My only gripe is with those characters, and many of the others of the series, they're lacking accessories, or just have an already existing color for an accessory. I guess LEGO figured these characters are so iconic, they'd sell themselves, no accessory was needed. It's still a lame choice considering obvious animal companions are missing, but not a big deal. It also sucks knowing the missed opportunity, especially seeing a minifigure like Alice, who not only looks fantastic with all the previously mentioned detailed pieces, but also has 2 very relevant fresh accessories. Still, with that being said, the LEGO Disney series tickles my nostalgia, quenches my thirst for unique and interesting minifigure pieces in one way or another, and satisfies my love for cartoony LEGO minifigures. And you may not agree, but this was my list, and I want to see your list. Feel free to post them in the comments below. This video took forever to make and was possible thanks to my loyal Patreon supporters. Each and every one is shown on the screen. If you're interested in going a little extra mile and supporting the channel, click that Patreon card there. Subscribe to keep up to date with more lists just like this video, and if you haven't, check out my video on my least favorite LEGO minifigure series. Thanks to Ash and Flash for the lovely Kylo Twitch artwork, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Bye.